Nomadic life is one of the most minimalist life in the world, which 100% based on the nature. We say like nothing waste. There is only one thing can waste from the animal is their breath. The rest is everything is used.
When we ask how do we feed the world in the future, the issue at the moment is a third of everything that we eat, produce from farm to fork goes in the bin.
Yeah, I know, isn't that crazy?
We like to call ourselves like a eternal blue sky country, and our heart, the way we think is similar as sky. It's always bright and like limitless.
Especially looking after the territory, even though it doesn't belong to you, is the big thing in nomadic life.
I was thinking about that a lot, like this whole concept of like why do we do certain things when actually you can look after your little life and you don't need to be raising hundreds of head of livestock. You can just look after your community, and then if you plug all these communities together, suddenly you have like a country that works.
Building our future through Earth's living grace.
Well, welcome, soil mates, to a really special episode of 6 Inches of Soil, the podcast, because this is an episode unlike any other that we've made before. I was really lucky to go with my family out to Mongolia, and when we were out there, we had an amazing tour guide who I'm pleased to welcome to the episode right now. What is your name?
My name is Amraa.
And where were you born, Amraa?
I was born in a small town in Mongolia, which is 440 kilometers away from the capital city. And when I was 12 years old, I think my family moved to the capital city to have better education for me, for my siblings. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you grow up in a farming community?
Yes, I did. Like all of my relatives, especially my father's side, they used to, like, they are still now living like a nomads, like truly nomads. And I used to spend every summer holiday, which is 3 months of the year, with them, like with my cousins, with my uncles, aunties, herding their animals, helping their daily chores, and it's still a very good childhood memory of mine.
Yeah, so you've had a lot of experience of working with livestock, working with the land. And just to help the listeners understand, the word nomadic farmer, what does that mean? So it means that you're kind of constantly moving around. Is that fair to say?
That's true. If I have to explain very easy way, it's like people are moving with their livestocks every season, which is like Mongolia has 4 seasons. So basically, minimum people move 4 times a year to choose better water resource, grass resource for the animals, because the animals' livestock is the main part of the nomads, like their food, their friend. I would say it's like it's everything for them. Even they respect the animals like it's their gods.
And just to help listeners understand, when you say you move, so you're living in these houses which are called gers. I'm going to hold something up to camera now so that the listeners can, although if you're watching this on video, this is a really sweet present that Amraa gave me, which is a hand-sewn little pocket pouch, which I now use to store my podcast microphones in. But this is what a ger is. But for people not watching, can you explain what a ger is and how it works and how you're able to kind of move so easily living in one?
So the ger is basically yurt. Maybe people know yurt well, but it's the most eco-friendly and ergonomically. It's also very good for the people's health because it's made by wool, all the organic materials like wool, which is able to breathe, and by wood, and it's possible to build in 30 minutes, fold it in also 30 minutes, and it's not a waste in the environment when we live somewhere. So it's one of the best yurt for nomad living, I would say.
Yeah, and together with my family and the families we were traveling with, we actually took one to pieces and we built one, didn't we? And it was an amazingly simple, a quite brilliant thing. And using the wool for warmth and for waterproofing, but also it
Yes.
had good kind of air conditioning, and it was an amazing thing to see. That's how the nomadic farmers get around and leaving minimal imprint on the land. So for listeners to understand the geography of Mongolia, so Mongolia is up in the kind of top right of Asia, as most listeners will recognize on the map. So it's to the north of China and to the south of Russia, and it's a pretty big country. But we started our adventure in Ulaanbaatar, which is the capital city, which I think I'm right in saying about half of the country live in that city. Is it something like that? And it's very high population. You have coal-fired power stations within the city, which kind of blew my mind, and a lot of congestion, a lot of people. And then you go out into the countryside and suddenly it's something completely different. It's just miles and miles and miles of grassland and livestock. And what kind of livestock are we talking about?
So we have 5 main livestocks, and those are like horses, cow, camel, sheep, and goat. And also we have additionally yaks in a high mountain region. So 6 main animals. And if I have to say another, the best friend for nomads is dogs. They also take care of the animals. They help. They work as a security of the house and stuff. So yeah, these are the main animals.
Yeah, it's an amazing country. To the north on our trip, we experienced, from a weather point of view, we had snow and it was really cold and a little bit wet. And then to the very south of the country, you have the Gobi Desert, where it's really dry and really hot. And so such a big country covering all those landscapes. But wherever you go, it's about grass, it's about the soil and the animals eating that grass. Now, we were in a gur one afternoon in the national park, sipping our tea, and we got talking about poetry, and it connected with me because you were explaining how the history of the country has always been livestock, and if it's okay with you to maybe read out a poem that will set the scene nicely for the interview with Oggy, who is the nomadic farmer who kindly agreed to do an interview when we were out there in person. But I was wondering if you wanted to read the poem for our listeners to enjoy.
Yeah, sure. I grew up reading literature books and also the Mongolian poems a lot. And even when I was traveling or living somewhere else other than Mongolia, I used to listen audio poems again when I'm homesick. So
Yeah.
some of the parts of the poems always stuck in my head, and sometimes when I'm explaining about Mongolia culture or nomad living, it's always related to my childhood memories, still with my relatives and stuff. So I still use or quote from the poem a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, of course, I will be happy to share one of my favorite poem, which is about herders. The name is The Herders by Chimit Turj, Mongolian artist. So, okay, I will try my best. On the land blessed beneath the sun's outstretched hand, they watch over their modest herd, to check whether their eyes lifted to the sky on the 15th night of autumn month, though swept by the floods of passing ages, they have never lost their true form. Tracing the chronicles of history, they remain the rightful keeper of their forefathers' homeland. Ride up and dismount, you will find no lock upon the herder's door, for nowhere in all the world is there a heart more free of deceit than that of the herder. If this fault-finding world causes him sorrow, he takes up his horse-head fiddle, finding comfort in its voice. He speaks with himself, patiently unraveling the tangled mysteries of existence. Rather than dreaming of rings upon their fingers or earrings in their ears, they adorn their spirited horses with bridles of solid silver. Even while softening rawhide, he softens his own thoughts. Though he forgets what school once taught him, he never forgets the words of his ancestors. If everyone moves away to the elegant city, who will remain to watch over the hearth fire? This thought troubles him. The ancient stone figures of our ancestors still stand beside these grazing lands. How could I leave them? Why should I abandon them to chase after city life? While broad-maned horses still stand saddled, while the heart of Chinggis Khan still burns, let me remain in my weathered brown gear, nestled against the mountains, filled with sheep and the scent of hearth smoke. There let me live, and there let me die. They have frozen with the mountains through blizzard of snow. They have struggled beside their nation against the storm of history. My father was a herder, my mother was a herder. Then who am I? Where was I born, and whose child am I? He reveres his blessed livestock even more than the gods. A truly great people, great precisely because they never boast of their greatness. The herder only a few generations younger than the Stone Age.
That was beautiful. A herder only a few generations younger than the Stone Age. And that is honestly exactly what I thought a lot traveling around, just thinking this has been this way since, well, 1206 or something. Did Chinggis Khan start the
Yeah.
empire, something like that? And what a beautiful way to set the conversation with Oggy. One last question before I let you go is, what would you like people outside of Mongolia to know about Mongolia, just to help educate them a tiny bit about your country? Do you have any final thoughts to share with people?
People might think Mongolia is very small nation, small country, stuck between two very big countries. But in my opinion, Mongolia has very strong identity. We might look like Chinese by appearance, and our personality is similar to Russians since we are like forever neighbors. But
Yeah,
still, we have our own independence and identity differences, cultures, history, the way of living and the way of thinking. And we like to call ourselves like a eternal blue sky country. And our heart, the way we think is similar as sky. It's always bright and not limited, I would say. So we are very independent, free-souled people, I would say.
yeah, yeah. And just amazing hospitality everywhere we went. Everyone was very friendly and loving and caring and wanting to show off with pride everything about their lives. And it was just a lovely, lovely experience. And thank you for treating us with that hospitality, especially my family and my children. And so without further ado, listeners, here is the interview with Oggy, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you again.
Well, welcome to 6 Inches of Soul, the podcast.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so excited.
Do you want to introduce to the listeners your name, first of all?
Yes,
Yeah,
my name is Ulaanbaatar, but people usually call me Oggy, and I'm 29 years old. From age of 0 until 17, I have been living as a nomad life. So, yeah, feel so lucky to be nomad as well. Yeah.
Wow. And where, I'll obviously ask you lots of questions about being a nomad and what that means, but where are we right now? Do you want to explain to the listeners, geographically, I mean?
Yeah, this is the South Gobi of Mongolia. So South Gobi is like one of the most biggest territorial part of the Gobi, where it's rich with like natural resources and history, and even the land-wise, it also has complete complex of many different type of soils and fauna and flora.
Yeah, it's amazing. And being a nomad, what does that mean? Help like somebody who might be sitting in their living room in London understand a little bit about what that was like.
Nomadic life is one of the most minimalist life in the world, which 100% based on the nature. So in nomadic life, we try not only the moving, we also try to use everything from the nature, and from that we want to build our own life within nature and our lifestyle. So how we do that is when the nomadic people choose to stay in one place, we want to choose it like good on the side of like being for the animals and for us also living in a comfortable situation. If the environment is good enough for us, then we live there. As soon as we feel like it's too much for the land, we move to the next place.
Okay, and how often typically would those movements happen?
Movement of nomadic family is different in every region. So the main logic is as long as it's good enough for you to live, then you stay in that place long as you want.
Okay.
So, which means in the northern part of Mongolia, for example, where it has a forest, where it has a green, so many green plantation and nearby the river, lake, and mountains. So this is perfect place for being nomad. So you live there, you move like 4 times a year. So winter place, summer place, spring place, and autumn place.
Okay.
But opposite is in the Gobi Desert. Gobi Desert, every year the amount of rain, amount of snow is different. Because of that, you need to move so many times. This year we having a little bit of dry summer, but last summer was amazingly green, amazingly rainy, and we had a lot of green. So, for example, this year, based on last year leftover dried grasses, the people can stay in one place for like week or 10 days or 1 month. And after that, they have to move in a different place. So technically in the Gobi, you might move 20 times, 30 times a year.
Wow.
Meanwhile, in the north, you move only 4 times a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to give the listeners an idea about what moving entails, we're sitting here right now in the Gur, which is like a dome, and you take that to pieces, right?
Yes.
And load it up onto something to
Yeah, in the past time, people used to use 2 different types of transportation. One is the normal regular cart. So most likely we use this kind of cart on the steppe where there is a easy terrain for the animals. So with the cart that is made by wood, and you load everything, you separate the wall, the sticks, the rooftop, everything piece by piece, and you separately load it on the cart and you move it through the steppe. But the other one is you use the animal back. So as, for example, the camels or the yaks and horses, you try to balance it on the both side of the animal back. Then you move over the mountains or across the river or this kind of hard terrain. We used to use this animals. And nowadays, many people, as following the development and modern life, many people do use the trucks or like big cars from one place to another when they move. But still, in the west, like where there is really difficult terrain, specifically in the north, when they need to cross these high mountains, the car is not able to drive. We still use the ancient technology,
Wow.
ancient way to do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And so you're obviously following the grass, but let's explore that a bit more. So that's because of the animals that you keep. So how many animals would you typically keep, and how would you use those animals to feed your family?
So let's take an example in the north of Mongolia, in the north or central Mongolia, where I grew up. When I was a kid, our family, let's say like 100% is all our animal, and 40% of them is horses. Because horses, first, we have really strong connection with the horses spiritually, and the second, we ride them a lot. So that's like 40% of them is the horses, and after that, about like 30% of them is like a sheep,
Okay.
and 10% is like a goat,
Okay.
and the rest is the cows.
Okay.
Yeah. So the reason why we keep the goat as a 10% is because when the goat eats the grass, they always pull the entire grass with the roots.
Okay.
So that means it takes a lot of time to grow.
Yeah.
For the grasses. Meanwhile, the horses eats the grass like if they bite here, the next bite will be here. But
Okay.
the goats will bite here.
Okay.
And the cows, they use their tongue to wrap it around the grass, right? So when they do it, they at least leave something on the ground, which is still has possible to grow. Yeah.
So you kind of need a mix of all of them.
Yes,
for it to work.
that's the reason. And the sheep, most likely we eat smaller animals during the summertime, where we have not so much possibility to keep the big amount of meat. So that's why we eat the sheep or the goat during the summertime.
Okay.
But when it's a winter, when it's from, let's say, like October to March, we have this cold period. During that period, we butcher one big animal or two big animal,
Okay.
including like cows or horses or yaks, and we can leave the meat outside, so you can store it like through the winter.
Okay.
Yeah,
'Cause it's cold enough.
Cold enough to have like big amount of meat. So
Okay.
that's like food wise. Yeah, that's how we use the.
And then what about the milk aspect? So where does the milk come from, and how do you as a nomad turn that milk into food for your family?
First, the bird season is always starts in between the March to June, and depending on the animal, it's always like one after another. First animal to give a birth will be most likely yaks, and then sheep and goats, and after that the horses and the camels. So those will be
Okay.
like in order. And camels sometimes give a birth early, sometimes later. And when the first month or 2 months, we don't milk the animals because baby needs the milk.
Okay.
And also grass hasn't grown enough yet. So during that time, the mama has only enough of milk for the baby. If we take that, the baby will starve. So that's why we know. So we rather not to milk them. And once the baby grows 1 month, 2 months, until June, the baby is strong enough. Baby already know how to eat the grass, and they have like side dish as the combination of like milk and grass. So that's the moment where we milk it. It's kind of too much. It becomes because the grass becomes green, and it's kind of too much for the baby. That's why we milk it and we take it. And the milk we make most typically 12 different sort of products we make from the milk, and including the horse milk that we make our traditional beverage. Yeah. So milk is like most likely Mongolian people's dietary is based on the dairy during the summertime.
Okay.
Because it's a hot and
Yeah.
we don't need to spend much energy. That's why we like try to eat less, like try to eat lighter. But in the wintertime, when it's cold, you need a lot of meat-based dietary. So that's
Okay.
what we do. Yeah.
And how much of that milk are you consuming as a nomadic family, and are you selling excess to the cities, or is mostly the milk that you get from your animals you use for your own family? How does that work?
It really depends on interest of the family. Some family only wants to use it on their own. And if some family has like too many animals, of course they will make extra to sell it to the city. And city people is still, Mongolian city people still come from the nomadic generation, so they also needs to have some dairy products. In my family case, we never sold dairy products. I have two brothers and one sister, so four of us plus my parents, so it's six of us needs quite a big amount of milk products. For example, we have, let's say, 20 kilos of dried curds, 10 kilos of butter, and about like 5 kilos of clotted creams, and a big amount of milk to make our traditional tea, like milk tea, so through the winter. And in the summertime, we just that amount that I just said is only for the winter time. Okay. And in the summertime, we take it like a lot.
And is that milk? It's obviously not pasteurized,
yes,
which is what we're used to in the West. But is it ever refrigerated, or do you constantly keep it warm and alive? Kind of a bit like keeping the mother culture. If you're making sourdough, is it the same for the milk, that you're constantly keeping it warm?
Yeah, like it's let's say like a raw milk. After raw milk, we have to cook it. So once it's cooked, we can keep it in the shade to have like the first product, which is the clotted cream. Mm-hmm. And after that, that's like really busy day, because once you got that, after that you have to keep producing it one after another, like make a curds, and it's like the cheese, or like this different kind of like yogurt and yogurt vodka, or this like traditional things. You have to keep it, cook it like one after another. Otherwise, if you keep it for a little bit longer, it becomes like a mess.
Yeah, I see.
But there is always the way to produce. Like even it becomes like super bad, we always can make the different type of things. And the most least product will be like super strong fermented yogurt that has been stayed there for so many months or really long time. So at least we can use it when we produce the leather. From the animals, yes. Okay. So let's say like there is one sheep's skin, we put it into the bucket, we add the water, salt, and that the rotten yogurt, let's say, into the bucket, and after that we close the lid, keep it for like few days, depending on what you want to do. If you want to get rid of the hair, it takes like at least 7 days to 10 days. If you want to use it as a carpet, nice carpet under your bed, or like, in that case, it's like 3 or 4 days to make it softer. And after that, we have traditional technology to produce it as an...
Yeah. So nothing goes to waste.
Nothing goes to waste. That's our like, almost like our like word, like symbol word. We say like nothing waste. There's only one thing can waste from the animal, is their breath. So rest is everything is used.
Wow. Yeah, that's an amazing ethos to think about through life. The other thing that I've been thinking about a lot as we've been traveling through Mongolia together is, what was it like? Like, what changes have you noticed in your lifetime from a kind of soil point of view and a weather point of view, and how much grass there's been? Have you noticed changes in your lifetime?
Yes, where I grew up in the Tirich National Park, the grasses used to grow in the summer where it's like about 60 centimeters or higher, even higher. And in the mountain, in the forest, when I lay down inside the grass, my grandma cannot find me, for example, And because of the climate change, I would say, climate change, we've been having this incredible different type of weathers in each year, which becomes surprise always for us. And the grass level is getting less and less. And also I can say that number of animal is quite getting big and big as well. And we cannot really force the nomadic peoples to have like small group of animals, right? But like specifically before COVID, like between 2010 to 2020, nomadic people were like rushing to grow their number of their herds. And since the COVID, we figured out it's too much. After that, people try to focus on the quality of the animal instead of the number.
Yeah.
So there is still like a lot of people who wants to have big numbers, but most of them wants to focus on the quality. For example, if you can find a good breed of father sheep, if you can find a good breed of the mother, then you can have like one good quality of baby that once it get mature, it will give you like about 40 or 50 kilos of pure meat and bones. Meanwhile, if you don't focus on that, if you focus on the number, then it will be like 20 kilos of meat.
Yeah.
So when you think of that, It's the same amount of work, but you have more from the less number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
huge. And speaking about that, you're processing all the animals yourself. By processing, I mean, you know, the slaughter and butchery, you don't send them off somewhere, right? You learn when you're young, like how to kill and process
Yes,
and cut, right?
yes. When I was a kid, my family business was butchering. So
Okay.
what we used to do was, it was like a side business. During the summertime, when we have a more free time, like summer, the temperature is nice, the weather is nice, it's more comfortable. So we don't need to focus that much for our animals. So during that time, my father and my used to drive different territory of Mongolia, collect the animals that the nomadic people wants to sell,
Okay.
bring it back to our place, and we prepared the butcher it, we prepared the meat and sell it to the city. So that was
Okay.
our
Wow.
side business, and I get to learn first time when I was 6 years old. I have killed the goat, and since then I always help my family like to butchering
Yeah.
process, and everyone, almost like every man has to know. That's what my father told me when I was a kid. If you want to be a man of the house, you need to learn how to do this. Otherwise, your family will be hungry. Yeah, so my brothers, my sister, everyone knows. My sister doesn't kill it, but she helps a lot.
Yeah.
And my brothers, we do butcher them.
And then what other food are you getting from the land here in Mongolia? So obviously there's the livestock that you've talked
Yes.
about. Do you grow much vegetables and fruit?
Traditionally, the Mongolian climate doesn't let us grow much.
Because it's dry.
It's
here,
dry.
Right?
It's
How
really
much
dry.
rainfall do you receive a year? I guess it depends where you are in the country.
Yeah, but where I used to grow up, it's like, let's say, including the winter and summer, let's say like 1 meter is the maximum.
Okay.
And most like averagely like 80 centimeters or less.
Okay.
Yeah, 80 centimeters or less amount of rain or snow that we used to have in one full year. And our soil, I remember that because when we built the fence, we do dig the ground. When we dig the ground, our soil level was like, the thickest was like this, which is about like 23 centimeters, like less than feet, it's like 23 centimeters. And after that, it turns into like clay or the rocks or
Yeah,
like
you
different
can't get
layers.
through.
Yeah, different kind of layers. So with this soil will be so sensitive, and it's already used to with our own like endemic climate, endemic grass and flora. So yeah, we don't really plant anything. If we need to eat some vegetables or some fruits, we usually go to the forest and pick up the berries, different type of berries. That's the only type of fruit we used to get. Cranberry, blueberry, raspberry, strawberry, black cherry, black currant. Those are the type of
And they're just
fruits.
growing wild.
They grow in the
forest.
wild.
Okay.
And we also has to be respectful when we're taking it, because if you take too much, if you hurt the plant, we say, my grandma used to tell me that you will have a curse or you will get punished by the nature spirit, right? So all these rules have been explained by the spiritual connection with the religion. So yeah, that's how we grow.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And also this whole concept that the land is all owned by the government, right?
Yeah.
So when you're grazing on grass or whether you're picking blackberries from the forest, that's not like your land, like it's the
not our
country
land.
owns
Yeah, it's
the land.
country,
So but it's still in your interest to look after it so that it's there for the next generation.
Yeah, especially looking after the territory, even though it doesn't belong to you, is the big thing in nomadic life. We can talk about river, the water base, water stream and river. We have this traditional rule that we never can dirt the water. If you dirt the water, all the nomadic people life is based on that water. But if you put one dirty thing in the water, you could have poisoned every other families. That's the main logic. But again, this logic is explained by if you dirt the water, like if you wash your dishes in the river, then the water spirit will be mad. Then it's gonna punish you in some way.
Yeah.
So that's how it used to be explained. And even now it's still like this.
Yeah. And as I was flying here, I was reading in the magazine about the Billion Tree project. Can you share with the listeners a bit about that and why it's important to Mongolia?
For Mongolia, the thing called desertification is getting bigger. because again, it's the amount of the animals that we have is growing too much, and the animals eating too much, giving too much pressure for the soil, and because of that, the soil taking so long time to recover.
Yeah.
And from that, our president, Mr. President, had an idea to plant like billion trees all over the Mongolia. So in that case, we can stop this like desertification, and also at the same time, it can educate the people to remind them again, remind the city people again, like we should love our nature. And I have heard that we have already planted about like 130 millions of trees all over Mongolia.
Wow.
Yeah, and whoever wants to build like this small amount of like forest, and that person has promised that he gonna look after this plantation, government will show quite many supports.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And I was learning about COP17, which is going to be hosted in Ulaanbaatar on middle of August, I think.
Yeah.
And all the nations are going to come together and hopefully take inspiration from all the stuff that your president's doing and the country's doing. And hopefully that will help.
Yeah, definitely.
Everybody.
Definitely. And also, I believe that we might motivate the other peoples as well to love the nature and plant more trees.
Yeah.
In order to keep our earth alive.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are so closely connected to the earth and the soil. It's really interesting to see it. And as the soil health improves, the nation improves. And as the soil health degrades, the nation degrades. And so I think it's obviously really important to look after it for the livelihood of your nation and your people and everything. There's no real question, but just as observation, it's really cool.
I really do feel
What was it like growing up here? I mean, you obviously learned how to look after livestock and soil from a pretty young age, and you were all being taught by your parents and your grandparents. Is that fair? Did they give you all the knowledge to learn?
So, like, my mother is a Buddhist person, then my father's side is like a lot of like shamanist peoples, and I do interested with so many different religions and all this Mongolian traditional cultures and rules, how we behave with the nature, what we receive, what we give, was always told from our ancestor. We would like who had the shamanism, and they do pass it down. And in the end, when I learned it, it was just one big love for the nature that is transformed into the religion. And which makes sense as well, like nomadic life really depends on the nature as well. There was one rule, for example, when I was a kid, if I make if I start drawing on the soil, this like making the line on the soil to using the stick, my mom will be really mad.
Yeah.
And there is like this saying, she will be like telling me that if you want me to die, if you want me to be cursed by the spirit and die, you can do the drawing.
Wow.
Right. So this will like affect me really strong. I never want my mom to die. So I will stop it immediately. I say sorry to the ground. I start fixing it. And since then, I will never gonna do it again. I will never gonna do it like and also if I see someone is doing it, I'll run to them. And you cannot do this because it's bad. Like this brings a bad luck.
I mean, I've noticed to that, I haven't seen any tilling or ploughing anywhere in the country. I've seen little to no tractors and machinery. It's all really simple livestock, a few humans. It's interesting the way that you guys approach the land and how you look after it. It's very different. Now, you've been lucky enough to like travel to the US and around the world a little bit. What things did you notice when you were in the States compared to back home from a lifestyle point of view?
I'm not like really city person. But the only thing that made me feel so interested was I was in Vietnam and I was crossing the bridge that was by the river. And that river was like so muddy, which I never seen the river being so dirty like this.
Yeah.
In my life, the river means it's like crystal clear water that people can drink, swim. You know, you can drink it like straight away. But when I see that river in the Vietnam, it was just muddy red. And maybe it's because the soil was like like muddy, and that's why the river just painted as like that. But also there was like a lot of rubbish. The things were flowing with the
Yeah.
river. That was really like, for me,
Yeah.
it was really difficult to see, and made me feel really strange.
Yeah. And that's agriculture, right? Tilling
Yeah.
the land, degrading it, and then when the rain falls, it can't infiltrate and go into the soil. It just washes the topsoil away.
Yeah.
I will get this stat wrong, but hundreds of millions of tons of topsoil every year get washed away from Western agriculture thanks to
Yeah.
too much working of the land,
Yeah.
ploughing, tilling, and you're right. Every river I've seen here is crystal clear,
Yeah.
and that's thanks to that. Just quickly, because I asked you this earlier, you used to keep a pet spider, right?
Yes.
Can you tell the listeners what the spider was, what it ate, how big it was, and also about when you got bitten by
Yeah.
it, because it's so interesting.
Yes, well, I used to work in southwest Gobi, where it's the territory of the camel spider. So camel spider is like apparently the biggest spider of Mongolia. It's about like the size of tarantula,
Okay.
we like about this big,
About the size of...
about the size of like the finger.
Okay.
And when I was working there, it's like a guys who works in the geological research camp, and we wanted to have like our own pet spiders. And every evening we want to see like who's spider gonna win the battle. And mine was like undefeatable champion because I was the youngest, so I would have
Yeah.
enough energy to catch many animals or like the lizards or the bugs from the ground and bring it back home, feed it, and it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And one time after I'd done with my spider, like I feel bad for my spider just looking at it. It was just caged in
Yeah.
the box and cannot even leave. So I was like, okay, it's time to release him. When I released him, I dropped the box to the ground and it came out, but it didn't even move. So I was worried, like maybe my spider is like hurt. Then I was like, come on, you can go, right? Like
With
tap
your
on
hand.
with my hand, tap on the back, and it got bit me. And it was so painful. I don't think I ever had that strong bite from the animal. But luckily it didn't. Most likely the camel spiders stick their teeth into your skin.
Yeah.
But this time it just bite me and then skipped.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was
But you lost the feeling
and
in your hand.
my fingers stayed like 3 years with numb feeling.
3 years?
Yeah, with
Oh
numb
my
feeling.
God.
That was really, really bad. Yeah, but I didn't see anything about the doctor. I didn't see the doctor or anything. It's just stayed like this,
Yeah.
and I haven't even noticed it yet. And now it's still there, like a little bit here and a little bit here, and it
Wow.
still has a little bit of numb feeling. And this is the first 2 fingers that gets like colder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, any final thoughts you'd like to share with listeners about nomad lifestyle, soil farming, Mongolia?
I always wish the nomadic life everywhere around the world, the nomadic life will recover again as it's now in Mongolia. And I always feel if anyone needs to live loving nature and living at the same time, nomadic lifestyle is the best way to do it. So yeah, that's what I always think and wish the nomadic life expands. Everyone learn how to love the nature, and I mean, human being, we are the only like peoples or the only creatures that has to be looking after the Mother Earth.
Yeah. And this idea of just looking after your own community, I think, is a really powerful one. I think often I have conversations with people and their concern with sustainable agriculture and regenerative agriculture is, well, how are you going to feed the world? And really, we should be thinking, like, how do we feed our community? And if we can get that right, that'll start to spread. And it shouldn't be mass production facilities. It should just be little, local, seasonal as well. Not having everything all year round, but just having things that are in season. So you're not having to ship stuff around the world, but just focus on your community. But well, thank you so much for doing this. It's been a real honor for me to meet you and spend time with you. And listeners, I got to meet Oggy's mum and your niece, and it's been really special. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for that as well.
Okay. All right. Bye. Well, Soulmates listeners, thank you for listening to those interviews, and hopefully it gives you a bit of an insight into Mongolia and the culture. I'm joined by superstar producer Claire Mackenzie. Hi, Claire.
Hello, Richard. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm very curious to see what you thought of this, especially because normally you're part of the recording process. And this, I went a bit rogue and did these interviews out in Mongolia. I'm curious what you thought about it all.
I was totally fascinated. So a friend of mine went to Mongolia years ago, and remember her coming back with the stories of the steppe, etc. And then you read about it, and we always joke in our family, you know, who does anyone know the name of the capital of Mongolia? It's like the one to test people on. But I've met so few people who've been, and I don't think I've ever watched any programs on it. So I absolutely loved it. I also loved both of them. They seem very spiritual, and also what we allude to a bit, we haven't done specifically, we probably haven't featured enough, the word is, well, indigenous voices, or voices that we are often alluding to practices that are innate to that country and the peoples, etc. And to hear from people where they are literally living on and off the land, and their footprint is small, is unheard of really now, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
And for you to find people that could speak English, we didn't have to have a translator, and these incredibly well educated people. But I think for me, I get a bit defensive, even though I'm not a farmer and everything. I now get very defensive of the farming industry, and people are a bit dismissive. I was with my family this summer, and in Switzerland, they split you very early on in an education system, and they talk about the farmers and the, you know, practical hands-on people are on one side, and the sort of white-collar office people on the other, and that happens quite early on in their education system. And sometimes then their comments are quite derogatory about farming or being connected to the land, yet you're listening to your conversations and I found them as illuminating as someone that's been to Cambridge and they've learned zoology, and they're because their observations are so innate and they're so beautiful and they're so insightful, and they really understand, and discussing the way that the animals they graze and how one should follow the other, and the type of milk, and how you and how you protect and how you preserve things without all the high-tech stuff. And the main thing being is that they use everything, and there's no waste. And waste is the biggest issue that we still haven't dug into properly. So when we ask a person a question of, you know, how do we feed the world in the future? Well, the issue at the moment is a third of everything that we eat, produce from farm to fork, goes in the bin.
Yeah, I know, isn't that crazy? It's crazy to think about. It was really moving being there and just seeing how fully sustainable the nomads of Mongolia live their life, and how nothing goes to waste, and they are properly living in synchrony with nature, and they're just moving with the seasons, moving where the soil is giving good grass, and as soon as that grass gets low, you just pack up and move to the next spot. And it was really eye-opening to see a culture where there was hardly any fences at all. There was no talk about this is my land and that's your land. It was always talk about this is our land and this is our country. I live now in Austin, Texas, where once you build your fence or your wall, if somebody comes into that space, you know, I'm allowed to go and buy a gun and shoot that person, right? And suddenly I was in a country, which, P.S., I don't have a gun, but you go into a country where it's proper community living and everyone really caring for each other. I found it really emotional being in that situation where you could really feel the community. And we learned that if you're out and about and there's a sudden storm comes in, the social norm is that I could go to somebody else's ger and, you know, receive a hot meal and a bed for the night
and that was just how life works. Yeah, it was very moving being there and learning that. And the other thing which I found really interesting was coming from food supply background like I do and seeing so much livestock. I kept on asking everybody, well, what do you do with your cattle and your sheep and your goats? Like, how do you turn them into money? And through the language barrier, eventually the message came back after confused looks, like, we don't. What do you mean? You know, we have these animals just to feed our family, and that's it. There's no concept of getting extra animals and then sending them off to slaughter, receiving money, and those animals go and feed meat to somebody else. It's, you're just looking after your family, your community, and all of these communities kind of work together. And it really reminds me of this. Do you know I guess you call it a parable. I think it's a German origin story about the businessman meeting the fisherman. Do you know this one?
No, it's not.
So, I'll tell you it. So a fisherman has been out in the morning doing his fishing, and he comes back to port, and he has a couple of really nice fish on board. And there's a businessman on the dock as the boat comes in, and the businessman says, "Oh, those fish are beautiful. How long did it take you to catch them?" And the fisherman said, "Oh, not very long. There are loads of fish out there." And the businessman said, "Well, what do you do with the rest of your time if only a fraction of your morning is spent catching fish?" And he says, "Well, I go home, I sleep late, I fish little, I play with my children, I talk to my wife, I stroll to the village each evening, and I hang out with my buddies. And so I have a full and busy life." And the businessman says, "Well, I've got an MBA. Why don't you stay a bit longer out in the water, catch more fish, and then what we can do is we can set up a business and we will sell those fish to the market and we will make all this money. Maybe we'll have to go through a canning operation at first, but then with time we'll raise an IPO and get some money, and then we'll buy the canning operation, and gradually we'll amass more and more money and wealth, and we can start to set up national distribution and we can export." And the fisherman said, "Well, how long do you think that will take?" And the businessman says, "Well, probably 15 to 20 years, something like that." But then what? And the businessman, laughs. "Well, that's the best part. Then we raise this thing, we sell it, and we make millions." And the fisherman goes, and then what? And then the businessman goes, "Oh, well, then obviously that's when you retire and you move to a small coastal fishing village and you sleep late and you hang out with your wife and your kids, and, you stroll to the village every evening and, sip wine and laugh with your buddies." And I was thinking about that a lot, like this whole concept of like, why do we do certain things when actually, you can kind of look after your little life and you don't need to be raising hundreds of head of livestock. You can just look after, your community. And then if you plug all these communities together, suddenly you have like a country that works. Yeah. What else do you think about, Claire?
Well, I was just wanted to ask, well, I didn't want to over romanticize, or me in my head over romanticize what was being said, because obviously they talked about Ulaanbaatar, and he did talk about supplying as butchers some of that meat going into the city if they had excess.
Yeah.
So I presume Ulaanbaatar has grown, and why, and what do they produce there, and what is the role of that city if they shouldn't all be living off as nomads? What's the growth, or any insight into that? And how do they feed those people in the city?
Yeah. So Ulaanbaatar has half of the country's population living in it, and it is massively overpopulated. In my experience, it sits in total contrast to the rest of the country. They have a couple of coal-fired power stations in the city with their chimney stacks, piping out black smoke over the city. We also learned that the power stations heat water, and the hot water from the power stations go into people's houses. So people don't have boilers in their house. They get supplied by the power station. And the city definitely sits in contrast to the country like that. The congestion was unreal.
like we complain about traffic in London or New York or cities. Ulaanbaatar was no joke. Like the whole city was in constant traffic jam status. The food does come from industrial farms. Some of it does get imported. We did see a couple of dairies where the milking cows were indoors in milking parlors, and we did see a few grain operations where it definitely was quite intensive farming in certain parts of the country. I don't know exactly what people do in Ulaanbaatar in terms of like what the businesses are there, but it's still quite a developed country, and certainly in that city. But yeah, that was also really interesting. You're right, like we shouldn't over romanticize it, and the city was certainly in stark contrast to the rest of the country. But I'm intrigued. I mean, COP17 is going to be hosted there. We're recording this at the start of August, and mid-August 2026, COP17 is going to be then, and world leaders are going to gather to talk about climate change, and hopefully some of them will be exposed to how Mongolia looks at that. And they have a project there called the Billion Tree Project, where they're funding the planting of trees all around the country to try to help contribute to combating to climate change. I would strongly recommend anybody go visit and experience it for yourself. It is very different. It's just very powerful to kind of challenge your thinking as to how life can and should work. I don't know if I've answered your question really, but I think I don't know enough about the city in terms of what the income is and things like that. But it changed my perception of how life can work, and especially proper understanding of livestock and soil and grass and food. It was amazing, and to have that access as well. I really felt fortunate. Mongolia is up there in the top northeast of Asia, north of China, south of Russia. It's definitely very much off the beaten track, and it was amazing to have such access. So yeah, listeners, if you were intrigued and want to learn more about it, we'll put some links in the show notes of how you can do that. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. We will be back soon with more episodes, and see you soon.
In 6 inches of soil, our world comes alive. A podcast of passion where all souls thrive. Soil mates unite in a bold common chase, building our future through Earth's living grace.